Hey there, everybody. I want to greetings. Sorry. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. And I'm sorry for the minute or so delay in starting. Forgot my water, and I cannot stay talking on a video for half an hour without that. So, anyways, we're here with the episode that I said would be the part two. I guess it's kind of a part two to what I did last week, which was exploring those kind of unknown type progressive rock bands, the ones that people who watch these type of channels would know, but a lot of people who don't watch these type of channels wouldn't have any idea about these bands. And I know that because I I had no idea about most of the stuff that we talk about on this channel prior to even starting this. So this, in partly, it's here for me to try and learn more stuff myself and to talk to people about stuff that I've learned and listen to what they've learned. Welcome, Grandizer. Welcome to the show. So today we're going to be talking about, I was going to do a bunch of bands, but I decided I'm just going to pick on a couple. So this one I had a chance to listen to today, Osric's Tentacles. This is their Arpland album, and as near as I can pronounce it. Let me make sure I got it here. Yeah, Erpland. I guess it's Erpland, right? Anyways, interesting album. I wouldn't say this is really progressive. It's kind of spacey, so I guess it kind of qualifies a little bit of spacey, but I think it's probably more of a psychedelic album. Really good. A lot of their stuff is really good. They don't have any vocals with their music. It's all instrumental, but for some reason, I'm not generally an all instrumental type guy, but for some reason I really like these guys, all instrumental. So this one is the newest one I've gotten from them. I've got a couple others, but this one, I like the way they set it up inside too. It's quite nice. Anyways, really good band if you like that psychedelic kind of spacey type music. Yeah, fantastic stuff. So that one's the first one. Yep, my work was good. No metal tonight. Sorry. I did eat my dinner. You're right, and I did my laundry. Although the laundry room flooded, so that kind of set me back, which is part of the reason why I'm starting a little later than I wanted to. So what I've decided to do, rather than do what I did last week, because it was nice to kind of talk about a stack of albums, but this time I'm just going to be basically talking about three, and they're all by the same band. That band's called The Chronicles of Father Robin. This is the first book of that chronicle. So this is the Song and Tales of Eroa. This is book one. And then we have book two, which is this one, which is the newest of the three for me because I just got it recently. And the third one, which is the Magical Chronicles, which is the third one. So both the first one and the third one have been in my playlist, both for a fairly length time. Both number one albums they were ranked as my favorite album on different occasions, of course, not at the same time. Both very good. This may be the best progressive rock to come out in a very long time. I mean, not that there's not a lot of good stuff out there. There is, but I think this is the best I've heard in a long time. So about this type of music. So the first thing I noticed is the instrumentation is fantastic. All three albums, really good. Now, I've only listened to the second book just the one time now because I just got it, but has the same feel. All the stuff on the three albums are all using instruments prior to 1975. So all the instrumentation is instruments that were built before 1975. So they have this really kind of progressive sound to it. the third album, which is the one that's currently in my playlist, which this one, has a lot of very Yes-like flavor music to their sound. Even the vocalist is very John Anderson-like, even though, I mean, you wouldn't mistake him and John Anderson, but he is definitely in that range. And the songs are all on this one particular are all very early Yes-like sounding. The instrumentation is fantastic, especially the keyboards. I think are exceptional. So I like all three of the albums. The newest one I've only listened to, like I said, once, but it's still, I can tell right away that I'm going to like it. So the theme of this is about a traveler, Father Robin. So in the initial one, which is this one, starts out the journey. He's on land, going to various places, traveling about. In the second one, it's more of a water theme. Ocean Traveler is the name of it. I mean, it is still the songs and tales of Aowa, but this book two, The Ocean Traveler. Book one is State of Nature. So in this one here, it's more of a water. The songs are more water-oriented or oceanic in flavor. And then in the third one, which is the Magical Chronicles, this one's more of a sky type thing. So you're in the clouds, up in the mountains, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, absolutely great albums, all three of them. So on this one, the one Elysian Forest is the one that most people, if you follow this band, will say is the best, is the known. I think it's may even be the single on the album. Whereas with the Magical Chronicles, which is the last one, I think the opening track, Magical Chronicles, is probably the best track. But every single track on this album is fantastic. This one, by the way, is the only one that has only 5 tracks. The other, oh no, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. These two have 5 tracks. The middle one has 6 tracks. That's where I was off. I like the color scheme. I like the art. I'm just going to open this up. So this one's kind of blue inside as well. This is the book 2. And as you see, another map of the thing. If you want to see more detail on this, you can go and watch my new albums purchase, which I released this afternoon. And this was one of the ones on it. I was really happy to get this after waiting and trying to find it for months because I had missed the initial sales of it. So it was, I guess I could have went to the Father Robin website, but I decided I would wait for Laser CD to get it again, and they did. I was happy to see that. This one I got through Amazon, and the first one I think I got through Laser CD as well. So yeah, it's just like this one's got more of a green theme to it. And I don't know if I've showed this, so I'm just going to give it a little bit. So it's got a little shot of the map, which is in all 3 of them, to be honest. I like the color scheme to it. I like the music, the tail. The artwork on this one is particularly good, if you can see that. Very detailed. Like, they went to a great deal of detail to draw this one. The other 2 aren't as good. This one's a little bit more detailed than the third one. But I think the first one is probably the best one of the 3. So, and the third one is probably the least of the 3 as far as the detail goes. But I think the music is the best on this one. Absolutely killer. This one has a kind of a yellow theme to it. So you got a yellow, a green, and a blue theme to the 3 albums. Now, for those of you who know anything about the history of this, they've been working on these for about 30 years, and then they put them all out within months of each other. So I think the first one came out in either September or November of last year, and then the second one came out in the late part of the year. It might have been November, so it might have been like September, then November, and then the final one, the Magical Chronicles. I think this one came out. So when I say last year, I mean like 23. So you got one in September of 23, one in November of 23, and I believe this one was either in February or March of 24. Yeah, so they're all like super, super great albums. I'm hoping that the middle one, because I've only listened to it once, I'm hoping that it'll be as good as the other two. And if it is even close, like this one is currently my favorite album. The first one had its period of time when it was my favorite album as well. And I'm hoping this one will also achieve the same thing. And I'll be quite honest, I've enjoyed them all so much. I'm hoping they do something else. Like I'm hoping these same group of guys do something else. And it's the same musicians on all of them. And I'll just tell you who they are. I believe there's 7 in total. Am I correct? Yeah, 7 people in total. So you've got Andreas Wettergreen Strawman Prestmo. He's the vocalist, but he also plays some different instruments as well, guitars, some bass. So he plays a little bit of Oberheim. Yeah, and this the good thing about the books is they give you the list of all of the different instruments, and almost all of them, of course, are pre-1975. Then you've got John Andre Nielsen doing Fender bass. So he's more or less the bass player. Also does some backing vocals as well. Henrik Harmer, percussionist, drummer, and does some backing vocals as well. Thomas Hagen Caldhall. I think that's how you pronounce it. So he is also playing some guitars, pretty much a guitar player. Does do a little bit of mandolin in here too. And then you've got Alexandra Morozova vocals. So she does the female vocal parts for it. Now, I'm not sure if she appears on the other two. I know she's on this one for sure. And then you have Regin Meyer. He's doing the flute. He does play some grand piano and some organ as well, and he also does vocals as well. Special guest is Hank Hakan Oftung, playing some Hammond organ, clavinet, some Fender Rhodes, a Mellotron. Yeah, so playing different places. And then the other last guy who also plays a little bit on the album is Christopher Momrek. It says he plays Bokla Music, Isle, and Behringer Model D. So I'm not sure what they are. Maybe somebody knows and can fill me in on it. Yeah, so these are, of course, members of other bands. One of those bands is, of course, Wobbler. That was the reason I decided to pursue it, because Wobbler was one of those bands that, as you know, I follow quite a bit. And I'm still really just learning about these guys. Even though I've listened to the music now for months, the first album, I think I was on my playlist for about 7 months. And then the last one, the number 3 album, it's been on my playlist for about the same amount of time already, and still doing well. So I'm still just learning about them and some of the instruments they play, and I'm hearing different noises all the time. Yeah, these are very Yes-like. And that is a big thing. But they're not just a Yes-like. They have their own bits and sounds to it too. Just fantastic band. So I wanted to spend a fairly lengthy time talking about it because I think they're so good. Yet, I went to Encore. They didn't even know who they were. Any record store I've asked about, nobody knows who they are. And so I know they were a perfect band for this episode. We'll talk a little bit more about Osric Tentacles. Now, I do have a greatest hits from them. This is the first one that I've actually bought that is a studio album by them. I was hoping to collect, there was another one that I really liked quite a bit. I'm just going to take some of this stuff out because it doesn't belong in here. It's just ads. So it does come with this little booklet here. Nice little inside part. Also has it's the CD for it is in a little sheath. I prefer these over the Digipacks because the Digipacks easily break. So anyways, Really good band. I don't even know. I can't even remember how I discovered these guys or how it came about. I think maybe they were given to me in one of the band wars, and thus I got to know them that way. Now there was a couple of other bands that I did want. I had hoped to purchase a couple from different stores. One of them was Solstice. This is another neo-prog band from the 1980s. I wasn't able to get the CD, but I just wanted to talk about the album a little bit. So it's got that very neo-prog sound. They're actually one of the better ones now because I don't really follow the newer Marillion. I haven't gotten into Pendragon or Palace yet, or North Star. I haven't been able to get their albums yet. I did get the one Pendragon album, but I haven't had a chance to listen to it. But Solstice, I really like it. I really wanted to get that album for this as part of this purchase, but they just didn't have the album I wanted. So I will continue with them because I think they're a band that has potential to be a really big band for me. So for those of you who haven't followed them, they're a neo-prog band. So anyways, those are the bands I wanted to talk a little bit about today. So if anybody's got any questions, they're of course more than happy to answer anything. And if you've got anything to add, you can certainly add that. I appreciate Grandizer showing up here. He's really good at keeping the ball rolling, so to speak. So some of the other bands that maybe in the future I'd like to maybe get a little bit into are a lot of the more up-to-date bands that came out in recent decades, other than the Chronicles of Father Roblin and Wobbler. There are some bands too, like trying to think of them. Oh, Ellesmere is another band that I like quite a bit. I've had a difficulty getting their new album. I missed it when it was on sale on Laser CD. I've been waiting for it. So you can upload it digitally, but I don't normally listen to stuff digitally. I tend to listen to just CDs, so I got to wait for it to come back. So that's another band I like quite a bit. I do like this Baroque project that's also come out. They've got some really interesting stuff. And of course, I will probably end up getting some more of Drifting Sun albums as I have contact with their website. So I'm hoping to get more of their stuff as well. Okay, so radio is not really in. So Grandizer is asking the question, Murph, how did you hear of these bands? Radio, friends, a concert where you never heard of them? So basically, I don't really listen to the radio, so I very rarely get anything off the radio. Mostly, I get them off YouTube sites. Other people who have bought this stuff and had discussed it. One of the shows I really like a lot is the Professor's Picks on Sea of Tranquility. He always has a plethora of stuff that I've never heard of. It just amazes me. There's so many bands. Like I've got all these bands I'm listening to, and then I'll go on his show and I won't. And every single band he'll be talking about, I've never heard of before. It's just amazing. Other people, other channels that I watch too will sometimes mention these type of bands. And sometimes I go on different websites. Bandcamp is one of the ones I like to. Prog Archives. Another guy, Scott Lade, of course, from the Prog Corner. He also has a plethora of stuff that he probably talks about more prog than anybody else. And so I like to listen to what he has to say too. Very knowledgeable man. He's turned me on to a few bands that I had not heard. Ellesmere is one of those bands. I heard him talking about an album. I went and checked it out, and did a video on their album, their newest one. There's lots of bands out there and this is the biggest problem I find with newer prog bands, is that they put out an album and then you don't hear from them for 2 or 3 years, and then they put out another band, or some of the members start another band. So you've got like 3 or 4 members and they're in like 5 or 6 bands. It gets really difficult to keep track of them all. But I basically, if I like something by a band, IQ is the band that I currently like the most of these bands. Um, they have so many good albums, and they've got a lot of the same people on their albums, which is really a bonus. If you can get 3 or 4 albums out of the same group of guys that you really like, that's a fantastic way to go. Yeah, so mostly it's YouTube or record sites, band sites. I sometimes go on Wikipedia and look at what's coming out new on their list. It's limited, but you do get the odd one from there. Of course, Bandcamp, and then any of the Prog, uh, uh, I guess, sites where you can buy albums. They often have a lot of what's new coming out as well. And yeah, I used to think there's very little new music coming out in the rock world. I thought it was basically just old stuff, but there is so much stuff come out. I do a video every week called What's New. And I'm doing like 50 of them a week, figuring that's going to cover more than them. And it just doesn't. Like I do 50 albums and I could easily do 300, but you gotta choose your spots. I can't do every video. Like I can't do that many videos for that type of thing because it's just a lot involved. There's just a ton of stuff coming out all the time. I could literally be listening to new albums every day and never listen to anything I got back here. And it would be easy to do because there's so many new albums. But I like to get new stuff. As we all do, we all like to. I'm not one of these people that is stuck and I'll only listen to bands from the 70s. You got to be able to move on because let's be truthful about it. Those bands are all going to be gone. For many of them are gone now, and people are going to pass away. They're all getting in their 70s and 80s and 90s. I mean, maybe the Stones will be all still touring when they're 90. I don't know, but for the most part, most bands can't do that anymore. So there has to be new stuff coming along. Now, is it really progressive? Well, the term progressive means they're constantly evolving. Well, progressive music has probably evolved to a certain point, and there's nothing new coming out, but it's still proggy in nature, which is good. Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about the professor's picks. Okay, so you can find this show on Sea of Tranquility. I think he does 1 episode a week. I'm not sure what day it is. I tend to watch it on the weekend, but I think it might be like a Thursday or a Thursday afternoon or something, or maybe Friday afternoon, one of those days. So generally, Laser CD. He's based in New Jersey, but of course, most of his stuff you'll find on the Sea of Tranquility. He's one of the regulars on in the Prog seat, which is a great show for a lot of people. Know a lot of stuff there. Yeah, I can understand why she might not. Yeah, new bands. There's tons of avenues, but that to me is the best source. Other YouTube prog sites. Um, Scott Lade. I'm not sure where he's stationed out of. I assume he was out of New York, but I never really paid attention where he's out. But he knows a ton of stuff. Of course, into the progs or not into prog in um, Prog seat, which is on Sea of Tranquility. They often have a ton of new stuff that they talk about. But the Professor's Picks, I think, is probably the best show on there for new progressive rock or just new stuff in general. Like you'd be amazed how many bands there are out there. It's just phenomenal. Like I went from probably a core of about 50 to 60 bands when I started this, thinking I had a lot of bands, and now I'm probably pushing over 300 bands that I listen to, all within a 3-year period. So there's just a ton of stuff out there. Not all of it's great, but a lot of it is not bad though. There's a lot of really solid bands. Even those tier 2 bands, which we weren't talking about tonight, are really good. That's for people that who are into prog music, know about these bands, but some of these lesser bands are not as known as much. Yeah, radio stations. Yeah, that to me is not a source for new music. They don't play new music. I don't know any radio station that plays new music. They play only those classics. That's it. If that's all you want, that's great. Enjoy it. Classic music is great. There's a lot of great classical music out there. Classic rock is fantastic. But you don't get the whole album for the most part. I haven't seen any stations that do it. And to be honest, I don't even look anymore. So I'm probably a bad source coming from the radio. I never, ever listen to the radio. The only thing I listen to on the radio is maybe the news. I have a couple of people I like to follow their podcasts and stuff, but they're not even music related. So they're not even worth mentioning. Yeah, they changed it in the 80s. You're right. And to be honest with you, since about 91 or 92, I haven't really listened to any bands. I can't even tell you if any of the radio stations I listen to even exist anymore. Yeah, it's difficult to get clean vocals. There's a lot. I assume you're talking about um, thrash metal bands that use the growl. You can get bands that don't use the growl. There are bands out there. I'm not as familiar with the new metal stuff as I am with the progressive stuff, though. That's my love. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. I don't want just a song. The problem with songs on the radio, they're often very commercial sounding. You don't really get a real strong feel for the band. I prefer the whole album because you get a kind of feel. I stopped listening to the radio in the early 90s. Probably, I would say probably 92. I don't think I've listened to the radio since about 92. So what's that? That's 33 years ago. I haven't listened to a radio in 33 years. I'm not saying I don't occasionally get the radio because I'm at work and there's some people that will play the radio, so I got no choice but to listen. Um, in the vehicle, sometimes people have the Aussie's Boneyard on there, which I guess is reasonably okay, but I don't generally listen to it because the problem is that they play the same stuff over and over again, and I don't want to get burned out on that stuff, so that's why I don't listen to it. Plus, I like my music. When I listen to this album, for instance, I listen to the whole album. I don't want to just pick a track out, play it, and then go and pick another track out. I don't even use I don't even record what people would call playlists and play them on my stereo or anything like that. I just play the albums. That's the way I am. Maybe I'm backwards, but that's the way I like it. Well, it was fine in the 70s and 80s because they had a different way of looking at things. New stuff would come out. They would play the new stuff. Now they just play the hits. That's all they want to play. Well, you're talking about new stuff that would reflect my taste. I would say probably Wobbler would be up there. Um, of course, I like this band, the one we were talking about tonight, Chronicles of Father Robin. Another great band. I like the new OPEC stuff is really good. This is a band I like a lot. Um, Even some of the older stuff that I never listened to back in the 80s, like Gentle Giant and that big important bands to be listening to now. Caravan, Camel, the list is Hawkwind. All those bands are great. Yeah, those two, Sammy Hagar, I'm not a fan. Don't listen to them at all. Dee Snider, I guess he's okay, but it's a kind of hair metal bands, which I really wasn't into at any point that I can think of. I don't go to concerts. I stopped going to concerts in the 80s for two reasons. First, I was finding my ears were getting damaged, and I didn't want them to be, I didn't want to lose my hearing. So I stopped going to them. They were starting to get expensive too. And I'm kind of cheap in the way that I would rather spend, instead of spending $100 to go to a venue and watch a band, I would rather buy a dozen albums and I can listen to them whenever I want at any volume I want, as many times as I want. Yeah, I've never been really I'm not really a live concert goer. The last one I went to was probably 1990 when I was in New Zealand. I went to see Elton John, and I was kind of disappointed because he didn't play any of the classic stuff. He played all the ballads from the 80s. Yeah, I'm not. I couldn't even tell you. I don't go to any festivals. I just, if I want to listen, if I want to watch a live concert now, I'll probably just buy a CD. There's so many live videos now and so much live music. And then again, I'm not a big follower of live music. There are some albums I really like that are live, but I don't generally follow them. No. I seen them in 1990. I seen them in 1990. It was in New Zealand. It was an open general admission concert in Christchurch. And I like Elton John, but I didn't like the 80s stuff. It was just all ballads. And so I wasn't never into that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really, I like hard rock a lot. And I like metal a lot, but I'm pretty much a prog guy now. There are some, of course, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. Those are two of my favorite bands. So I do like to listen to their stuff quite a bit. And some of the new metal is not too bad either. I did buy a new metal album this week, which is up on top of the stack up there. Tokyo Blade is the name of the band. They were what do they call them? The new wave of British heavy metal. Yeah, they were one of those bands. It's a pretty solid album, too, much heavier than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more like Def Leppard, which to me is a joke that they call them a metal band. They're not even close to that. Prefer real metal as opposed to that. Anyways, yeah, so these were the band. This was the topic for tonight, these three albums. You can punch these albums in, the Chronicles of Father Robin. They come up fairly easily. Most of them you can find on YouTube. Give them a listen and tell me what you think of them, because I think they're fantastic. This may be the best three albums set that I've ever had, really. Very few bands do a 3-album kind of what do they call it? Can't even think of what it's called now. Losing my mind, I guess. Well, the only rock show that I would think was back in 1983, I believe it was 83, at Massey Hall in Toronto. I went with a friend. He bought tickets for us to see a three bands in a 3-in-1 concert with Ronnie James Dio hosting being the mainliner in the concert. The other two were Anvil, which I've mentioned on this channel before, and Metallica was the opening band. That was, I think, right around the beginning for them. I think they were new and right on the scene, and probably exploded almost immediately after that. I didn't know who they were or Anvil were. I only knew who Dio was. That's why I went. As far as the satanic music, I don't really listen to it. I'm not really into that kind of thing. What else is he? Yeah, that Satan's music, that wouldn't really. I can't really say I did like the early Black Sabbath stuff when I was younger. I don't really listen to that as much. I prefer the more metal stuff now, although I do still like that doom metal. Yeah, there's a lot of these on radio stations around. I remember listening to Alice Cooper's when he was a DJ for. He had his DJ and had his spot on Q107. And God, I was probably in my early 30s then, so it's a long time ago. I don't know if he does that anymore. Maybe he does. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know much about radio. I can't really say too much to you about it. Yeah, I would say if you are getting into prog music, or you're just getting into prog music and you're looking for bands you haven't listened to, this is definitely one of those bands. This is as new as they come. These albums are all less than a year old. There's some other stuff, Ellesmere, the Baroque Project. I like that. Even some of the Neil Morris stuff, the newer stuff, really good. Trying to think of somebody else here that really has impressed me. I do like the Drifting Sun stuff, maybe not as much as I originally thought I did, but I do like it. Yeah, I'm not an indie. I don't follow indie music much. I do. I guess there might be a band or two I don't mind, but don't really follow them as a whole. Yeah, I'm not surprised. A lot of most of the music that's left, or the rock music that's left, is just um, what they if they're classic rock, they play classic rock album. They only play the hits. Very few of them play any deep cuts. There are a couple. We have a rock station here in Kitchener called Dave Music, and he sometimes, on occasion, I've heard him play stuff because I only hear this because they're playing it at work, and as soon as they turn the radio on, I leave. That's the only reason why I know anything about that channel. And they would play it sometimes at the gym I used to train at, but I don't train at gyms anymore, so can't really say. That's like a decade ago now. Yeah, that's and Aussie's Boneyard on occasion they play that at work too, so I do hear that, but again, part of the reason I don't do it is because they might play the same song 5 or 6 times in a day. I don't really want to hear that. That's just going to turn me right off of it, right? Yeah, I think most of the bands just do the quotas because that's what the radio stations want. They have a set of like 200 or 300 songs, and you can play them all, but you got to play them all, and you don't play anything outside of that. I remember I was listening somewhere, and I don't remember where it was. Might have been in a restaurant, and Styx had just put out a brand new album, Crash of the Crown. This is going back about 4 years, and they were talking about the album on the radio station, about how good they thought it was. And then what did they play? They said, "Here's Sticks for you," and then they played "Come Sail Away." So, why did they bother talking about the album if that's what they're going to do, right? No, I don't listen to anything. It's always albums for me. The stuff you see here, that's what I listen to. I have a stereo in the front room. I have a couple of CD players here. I used to have one in my car, but as you know, they don't put them in cars anymore. I didn't throw it out the window. I just don't listen to it. I still have the radio. I just don't listen to it. Yeah, I stopped playing music from the radio when they started just playing hits, and I started noticing that albums would come out and they wouldn't play the new albums. They would only play, you know, like an example is Rush. They play Rush, so they would play Tom Sawyer, Close to the Heart, and Red Barchetta, and Limelight, and Spirit of Radio, and that's it. Nothing else. Maybe you'd get, oh yeah, and of course you would get subdivisions from Signals, but the rest of it they just didn't play. They didn't play any of the new stuff. They didn't even play any of the old stuff. That's what they would play. Those 6 songs. That's it. And to be honest, if I never hear Tom Sawyer again, it'll be too soon. I just don't care to hear from anything from Tom Sawyer anymore. You know, it's not that it's a bad song. It's a great song, but I don't want to hear it ever again. I've had enough of it. In fact, that whole album is one of the few albums I never pull off the shelf by Rush. I'm a huge Rush fan. They're my favorite band. I listen to most of their stuff, but that one I won't pull off. I can't remember the last time I pulled Moving Pictures off of the. It might get it at one time a year. Most of the ones I go to are always pretty much the same. Anything pre-Permanent Waves. All the pre-Permanent Wave albums are the ones I listen to. Yes, I sometimes listen to Snakes and Arrows. Sometimes I listen to Clockwork Angels or Counterpoint. I can never remember the name of this album. I call it the Blue Album. I, for some reason, have a mental block with the name of it. And actually, till recently, Wind and Wuthering is an album that I always like. It's from Genesis. I've always liked it. And I've always called it the Wind and the Wuthering, but it isn't the Wind and the Wuthering. Somebody just pointed that out to me, that it's just Wind and Wuthering. So sometimes I miss those little things like that, you know. With rock music you listen to, do you think it pretty much hit a dead end, or that is just does not get any airplay? Oh, rock music hasn't hit a dead end. Not at all. The radio stations may have hit a dead end. They've decided that there's only the classic songs that they want to play from certain bands, and those bands only get those songs played. They don't play any of the new stuff. Some bands have put out their best stuff in the last 5 years. Bands like Uriah Heep, Judas Priest. These bands have put out some of their best stuff recently. Like that, they're still making great albums. The Stones, there's a classic rock band. They just put out one of their better albums, I think. At least one of the better ones since the 70s. So there's still great music out there. It's not changed. And there may be some of these lesser bands that people don't know about. Those bands are putting out as good as anybody. Yeah, the disco was kind of the beginning of the dance music offshoot, and now it's just dance music. But that stuff is not stuff I listen to. So I don't listen to rap. I don't listen to dance music. I don't listen to I don't even know what you call it, ballads or any stuff like that. I don't really listen to the modern music, like I guess you know, Ariana Grande and stuff like that. I don't listen to that. The only person that kind of fits into that I like is Rihanna. That's it. She's probably pretty much it. I do not listen to country music. My parents played that until I was sick of it. I never want to hear it again. Any kind of country music, even the newer stuff. Don't really listen to it. I don't really listen to it. Let's just put it that way. I'm sure it's great music. There's lots of people that like country music. It's a big genre now, one of the biggest. It's just not for me. I prefer rock. I won't even really listen to much jazz or jazz fusion. I don't mind jazz fusion, but if it's on, I won't get upset with it or anything. I'm pretty much prog, hard rock, heavy metal, some folk, maybe some psychedelic music, some classic pop stuff like from the Beatles and stuff. Yeah, that's all good stuff for me. No, I don't like the Grateful Dead. Too much Neandering. The music neanders too much. It's kind of the same as the Allman Brothers. Both good bands. A lot of people like them. I got no problem with either of them, but I can't really listen to them. I find they neander too much. Yeah, the only band that kind of comes in around there that I don't mind a little bit is Leonard Skinner. I like them. I like some of their stuff. And there's some of those bands that I always, sometimes this is the other thing that happens with radio, and I'll say this because I forgot to say it earlier, is that radio may play a particular song that you don't really like or a particular style of music from a band. The one that comes to mind is the Sweet. So a lot of the Sweet stuff that you hear on the radio is very poppy, like Ballroom Blitz and Fox on the Run, that kind of stuff, or Wee Willie. Very poppy. So you get in your mind that that's what the band sounds like. But then you go and you get their stuff and you listen to it and you find that they don't sound like that at all. That those were just the songs that made the radio. The Fox on the Run, Ballroom Blitz, Love is Like Oxygen. These are all sweet songs. They're all poppy. And they're good. I like them, but that's not the way they sound. If you buy their albums, you will quickly discover that they are one of the heaviest bands out there. They're a very heavy band. The songs that made the radio weren't that heavy, though. That's the thing, right? And this happens with some bands. There's some bands like that their stuff that's most well known is not like really much like their music that isn't well known. Anyways, I got some baseball to do now. I thank everybody for coming. I thank you, Grandizer. You're one of the good ones who come on here and ask questions, make the show interesting. Yeah, I have a baseball that I play, so I'm going to go and get into that now. It's a Stratomatic 365. I got some games that I got to watch. And I also like Baseball Demos, which is a channel on YouTube where he plays using the Stratomatic. He actually plays all the different baseball games, but the one I like is the Stratomatic game. He plays that, and I really enjoy watching it because he does such a good job on it. He really knows his stuff. Anyways, I'm going to cut out. I appreciate everybody showing up tonight for the episode, and hopefully we will get more people as we go along, and I'm going to try to think of some different topics now. Yeah, no, we won't be talking too much about that guy. Anyways, take care, everybody, and I will see you again soon. Have a good one, and good night.